Oh, 1, 2. Hello everyone, welcome. My name is David Catuhe, and just in case if my accent was not a good hint, I'm not American, I'm French. Yeah, there is one French here. So I'm pretty proud to be here with you guys today. I would like to present you something, a framework I'm working on. And the name of this framework is Vorlon.js. So I'm a big fan of Babylon 5, the TV show. For those of, if you know it, it's the name of extraterrestrial race, one of the smartest, and I found it's a good name for my frameworks because it's a smart framework, I think, and I want to prove you this specific point. If you want to reach me, feel free to ping me on Twitter @DeltaKosh here. And if you know Babylon 5 again, Kosh is the ambassador of the Vorlon, so all is linked. So, the web. What's the web today? The web today is a complex ecosystem with a lot of different devices. You can have a PC, a tablet, a Mac, a phone, a connected fridge, an IoT devices. They may all run under Node.js, or they may be capable to run JavaScript. And today it's, how I can say that, it's really a rich environment. But as a web developer, it could be also a little bit problematic if you want to reach all of these devices and if you want to ensure that your code will run well on every of these devices. So, if you want to debug, because it's the goal of this topic, how can you debug on all kinds of devices? For most of the time, as a web developer, what I'm doing, I'm just launching my browser. So guess what? It's Microsoft Edge, obviously, but it works with Chrome. There is no difference. So let's say I'm using Chrome, just for the sake of this presentation. I'm using Chrome, and I want to debug something. So I open my web page, I hit F12, and I start debugging it. That works well because I'm running it locally. Now, let's imagine you want to deploy your website on a iOS and Android, and why not a Windows phone? I'm pretty sure. How many Windows phones here? Okay, so you're working for Microsoft and you're French. So, how many iOS? And Android? Okay. So let's say 50-50 between iOS and Android. So you're on Chrome and you want to debug on iOS, on Android, on perhaps other devices like your PlayStation 4. You want to debug your website, so it should run as well on the TV of your customers. You may want to have it running on Apple TV, etc., etc. So you may face a problem to debug your specific website on these specific devices. We all know that the web is wonderful, but we all know as well that all browsers vendors, and I know because I'm working for Microsoft, there is a standard and there is the implementation. And sometimes there is some discrepancies, let's say. So, if you want to debug remotely, most of the time it's really hard. You start with a lot of good ideas, and you end up by just giving up at, what I can say. Because either you want to use proprietary tools, or some interesting experimentation like Winry. But most of the time, you are linked either to a browser or either to a specific device. Vorlon.js, in the other hand, is a purely, completely agnostic JavaScript framework. It's purely based on Node.js in one hand, Socket.io in the other hand, and nothing else. So if you want to debug something running on your connected fridge using Safari, that works. You are not forced to use any specific device. And obviously, it's aimed to be run on a remote device, so we provide everything. And I want to precise it because I'm working for Microsoft. It's free. It's an open source project. There is nothing related to Microsoft in this specific framework. I started it on my spare time, actually, and we decided to go to the next level together with Microsoft. So, Vorlon.js is based on plugins. You can write your own plugins if you want to improve the overall architecture. But basically, when you just npm install Vorlon.js, you will receive 8 different plugins. I will show you all of them. But basically, the interactive console is a remote console. So everything rendered on the console on your remote client will be displayed on your PC. Okay? That's, for me, the very first level. So each time I have a bug on a specific devices, mostly on phone, I would love to be able to say, hey, please just show me the console so I can see what kind of exception I got, and I will be able to fix it. With Vorlon.js, all the console will be displayed on your PC, so it could be just a time saver. Etc panel is a way to sniff etc to understand what's happening on the network. We have the DOM Explorer, exactly what you could expect with your F12 tools, for instance. The Resource Explorer is more if you want to inspect a local storage or database, etc. We have the Object Explorer, which is a tool to scan all the JavaScript variables. Network Monitor to monitor your network. We also have 2 interesting plugins, which is Modernizer. It's just a tool for you to know the capabilities of your devices. Okay, they all support web audio, for instance, so it's fair to say that I can use web audio, for instance. And NG Inspector is more for people working with AngularJS. It's a way for you to debug scopes. When you are working with AngularJS, sometimes we have scope inside scope inside scope, and it's hard sometimes to understand where are your data. With this specific plugin, you will be able to understand it. So, let me do a demo. I have already forked my Vorlon.js, so you can go to the vorlon.js.io and you can fork the GitHub repo, and you will get this folder already deployed for you. Let me go to the server part. So it's a Node.js project. I can just start node server.js, and we will listen on a specific port for you. I also have a specific folder here named plugin, where all the plugins are live. And let me just start a specific gulp task. So this task will just generate for me a random page. It's not easy for you to see it, but this page contains various tools to debug. Okay, so I can click on a button to generate, for instance, a console.log, etc. Let me open now Vorlon.js itself. Okay, let me move that here. Okay, on the right, I have my client page. And the only thing I did on this specific page was to add a link, a reference to Vorlon.js in the header of my page. Nothing else. I didn't change anything inside the structure. Okay? So now, because I added the Vorlon.js framework, I can see here that I have one client already connected. And I can, over any of the resources on my dashboard, and I can control what's happening on the client, okay? So let's imagine the client is not obviously on my computer, but it's on a remote computer, on a remote device, on a remote whatever you want, as long as this stuff is able to run JavaScript. So let me go here. And we have here all the plugins. The DOM Explorer is, well, the DOM Explorer. So we have dynamic feature like, okay, hello page. And when I change that, dynamically, if you go to the client obviously is changed dynamically. You have a complete dynamic link between the client and the dashboard. You can check styles, add new one, dynamically say, okay, I'm gonna add background color, for instance, and it's gonna be red. And the client is updated. The goal of the DOM Explorer, obviously, is for you to understand why a specific page does not render well on a specific device. Okay, so you can play with the CSS, add style, understand as well the computed styles. Sometimes you may have used a CSS rule which is not supported by the client, so it won't be listed here. You have also a precise view of the layout itself. Okay, so my button is not where it should be. Why? Because the layout was screwed, for instance. And you can do that for any items. You can change the value live, and you can update them, even the text. We have the Object Explorer as well. So the Object Explorer is like the DOM Explorer, but for JavaScript. Here, you have a complete list of all the variables available in the global scope. So, I don't know, I can see if one specific event is connected. I have the parents object here. I can check the Chrome app, blah, blah, blah. So you can open it and see what's happening here. XHR, I will go back to this one. It's a spy that allows you to understand all the XHR calls already done. Network monitor, it's a view for you to understand what was slow to load or what was not found, and all the HTML error code that you may have. Resource Explorer, so this is what I have in my local storage. This is what I have in my session storage. The cookies are already defined. My device is more a tool for you to understand the size of your device, aspect ratio, meta tag, screen width, screen height, the resolution, etc., and the user agent sent by the client. Best practices, we are working on it. It's a tool for you to get a hint. So, okay, you have a specific image, this one, where there is no halt. I can also check that the label tag must have a 4 attribute, so there is something wrong. I can also check for the mobile web that I didn't define platform icons, like Jeff mentioned this morning. Performance-wise, we should perhaps enable static encoding, etc., etc. So this plugin is more about giving you some hints to improve your page. And in the bottom here, I have the interactive console. So the console is like, okay, on the client, I'm clicking on a button. You see that I have the information that appear here. I can even, we are supporting the new console.dir. So we can even open the object that was sent back from the client to the dashboard. And you can do as well the opposite. It's an interactive console, which means that I can call any code, and this code will be sent to the client. The client will execute it. So you can even tweak it by code if you want, like hello, how, boom. And if I'm going to the other page, I have the code executed. Okay, and the modernizer one is just a list of, okay, what's supported, what's not supported. So for instance, my Edge client does not support CSS reflections. Okay, so I have to think about not using it. All right, any question? Okay, let's go further then. This demo was interesting, but it was just me and myself. I was just on my computer trying to debug something, and for exactly what I did there, using the F12 native client was enough, obviously. Now, let's play a little game together. I will ask you to go to this specific URL, aka.ms/HTML5DevConf, okay? In the meantime, I will go to the dashboard associated. Just have to remember the URL. If my Wi-Fi is working. So if you have any devices, you should be able to go. Sorry, I'll try to give you. So aka.ms/HTML5DevConf. Which is a client page with exactly the same content I showed you before, but available on the network. And I will be able to navigate, hopefully. I know there is a Wi-Fi for the speakers, but I don't have the password. Yes, because for some reason I'm not reaching my.
HTML5 Go 1, all lowercase.
Oops. So in the meantime, guys, let me connect to the client. So this is the client page that I want to debug, if I can reach it. Are you able to reach it on your side? Perhaps with 3G? Yeah, it works? Okay, so I would love to have a better connection. I'm opening. Wi-Fi is not helping me. Crap. Oh, yes. Perhaps it will work. So this is the page that you should see on your devices, okay? And in this specific page, there is one specific line in the head. What the heck is that? There is one specific reference in the head just there, which is a reference. Oh, you can see it. But there is a reference to my dashboard, okay, where the Vorlon.js lives, okay? So I'm just trying to open the dashboard once again. Sounds better. Oh, okay, so as you can see, we can introduce what's the password? Yes. I think it's that. Hopefully. Yeah. My demo will work. Okay, and now I can see that I have 2 Macintosh, 3 Windows, 1 iOS, and 1 Windows Phone. So if I want to debug any of them, I just need to click on Identify a client. On new devices, you will receive a number. So for instance, let's debug the iOS one. Who is number 5? You're number 5? Let me identify again. Number 5, sir. Okay. So now, when I'm moving here, you should see on your screen that I hover specific entry of your page, right? No? Yeah, that's a good point. Let's move to number 5. So you are now selected, and you should now see, yeah, thanks. And for instance, I want to say, you should buy a Windows Phone, which is not an advertising at all. It changed on your devices. So I can see that, for instance, your device is supporting a lot of stuff. Wow, everything is green. Impressive. Oh, cool. You don't have this specific feature. I can check the specific layout of this entry. I can change Object Explorer here, etc. I can start it. And if you click on your page, there is a button somewhere in the bottom of the page where you can initiate an etc call. You see it? Yeah. Click on it, please. Did you click it? It should work, but the network is really slow. Let's wait. I can as well see all the objects that you have in your page. The Resource Explorer, you don't have any. The network monitor is slowing. Everything else, yep. So we have some issues, I think, with the speed of the network. But as you can see, with a decent network, this kind of stuff can save a life. So you can easily identify which problem, which CSS is not working, which JavaScript is not working. Any question? I can reset all your devices if I want as well. No, I'm kidding, because we are running inside the sandbox. I have no control over what. It's just like a web page. I can do what a JavaScript page can do, nothing more. So regarding security is also fair. So you can deploy that to your clients. You are inside the JavaScript sandbox, so no security hole here. All right, go back to the slides. Zoop. So you want to use Vorlon.js now, you're convinced it's a great tool. First step, just install through npm install -g Vorlon, and you start Vorlon. Boom. And you have the server that I use right now. It's running locally, obviously, but you can also deploy it with one click on Azure. Obviously, it works with any web cloud provider, but let me just show you. We introduced that in the very latest version. So here in the documentation, you have a simple button, deploy to Azure. And if you have an Azure account, there is free version, no problem with that. You can just click on it, and all the Node.js stuff will be deployed for you inside a Node web infrastructure, and you're ready to go. So the demonstration I did before with all of you connecting to a specific infrastructure is just one click. Step 2, obviously you want to specify that a specific page or a specific website needs to be debugged. So you have to add this line, and obviously you have to replace this with the URL of your web server, depending on where it's deployed. So it works locally, it works with HTTPS, without HTTPS, and obviously on any cloud server. And that's it. Nothing else. All the services is then deployed for you. It's a Node.js communicating with Catuhe. But there may be another issue is, because sometimes, most of the time, we find a bug when the site is in production, right? And in this case, it's not a good idea to deploy Vorlon.js on your production site, because it will establish a socket connection for every of your customers. Not a good idea. You may want to do that for some specific customers, or you may want to do that like when they click on a button, but having it always connected is not a good idea. So we decided to introduce a brand new feature. This is the proxy. You can use it while you're discussing with a customer to inject dynamically Vorlon.js afterward. Let me show you. You can go to the same URL and add HTTP proxy. Obviously, this works as well if it's deployed on any cloud infrastructure. And then we have a local HTTP proxy running on top of Node that will allow you to just download a page, and before serving it to your local client, it will just inject Vorlon.js for you. Okay? So let's, for instance, let's debug google.com. So as you can see here, this is google.com, no worry about that, but we just inject inside the page Vorlon.js. So all the services that I mentioned before are operational. Let me move that here, there. And as I move, I can do that. For instance, the XHR one, let me start it. And let's start a search on HTML5. As you can see on the left, I can check all the XHR done while I'm typing. Obviously, I can debug what was long to load. I don't know. No, this one was long. I don't know what is it. It's a script, OK? So you can use it for your own website to debug what was long to load, why something is not working, without having to think about injecting it inside the page. You can just ask your customer, OK, can you please go to this specific URL? And you're done. The proxy will work for you. OK? No questions? OK. Final step. Now, you want to use Vorlon, but you may have your own idea. We have a bunch of plugins already developed. New ones are coming. We, for instance, have one for Ember.js if you want to help debugging Ember.js. But you may think about your own framework. It's an open source project, so you are more than welcome to contribute. There is absolutely nothing against that. When you think about a standard JavaScript development, your JavaScript will reach the local page, and the local page will be used by the local JavaScript. Fair. For Vorlon.js, we have to think about a two-headed project. The first one is your client, where Vorlon.js will run, and it will be used to capture information. This information will then be sent to the dashboard, which is a different website, through a Socket.io infrastructure, okay? And obviously there is a back communication mechanism that you can use to send information. Like when I used the interactive console and when I typed alert, I sent an information from the dashboard to the client, and the client reacts to that, okay? Let's create a simple plugin. So this is the complete folder of Vorlon.js. There is two main folders. The server itself, if you want to change something in a dashboard, for instance. Actually, there is three stuff. The dashboard itself, the Node server, which is used to communicate between the client and the dashboard, and the client, okay? And then we have plugins. For every plugins here, you will find a specific folder. Let's take the simple one for start here. So, your plugin needs to have a UI, because when your plugin is displayed inside the dashboard, you want to display something, okay? That's your UI, okay? So for that, you can provide CSS, HTML, and I forgot to mention that, Vorlon.js is built on top of TypeScript. So we are using TypeScript to get all the wonders of ECMAScript 6 and 7 for free. So, for the client part, there is no UI. You are just here to capture or interact with the existing website, but no UI, okay? If you want to create your own client, you just have to... How many of you are already familiar with TypeScript? And ECMAScript 6? Okay, so let's consider TypeScript is ECMAScript 6, okay? So here, I have a class, like in ECMAScript 6. I can extend a specific, like a mother class, let's say. And you just have to provide a constructor where you define what's your name. And this name will be your unique ID to communicate between server and client. Then you say, OK, I'm ready to go. No need for wait. Sometimes you may have to wait. Let's think, for instance, about the Modernizer plugin. You need to wait that Modernizer has to be loaded before you can use it, right? And the client may not have already loaded Modernizer. Most of the time, they don't. So you have to dynamically load Modernizer, waiting for Modernizer to be loaded, and then you will be able to use it. So here, it's a simple plugin. I have nothing to do. I'm already ready to start. My ID is simple. No worry with that. Refresh is called by the dashboard when you select a client. The thing that I forgot to do just before to connect to your iOS devices was to select a specific client. I was on number 1. I wanted to go to number 5. When I moved from one to another, every plugin on the client will be called with a refresh. OK, now you're connected with the dashboard. Send back all the information you may have. OK? So here you can do that. And then we have a simple function here, start client side. This will be called by the Vorlon infrastructure on the client when the page is loaded and when the framework is OK to start all plugins. And finally, we have an interesting function here. This function, on real-time message received from dashboard side, it's self-explanatory. I like that. When you receive a message from the dashboard, this function will be called. Easy. And you decide what you want to exchange between the dashboard and the client. There is no already defined protocol. This tool is just here to take a message from the dashboard and send that to the client, or take a message from the client and send that to the dashboard. That's it. OK? So let's say I receive a message. This message is just some text here, and I want to split it, reverse it, join, whatever, and send that back to the server. I do something. OK? The second part is the dashboard side. So for the dashboard side, you may specify an HTML. It's like web component. They specify a HTML control that will be used inside your tab, inside the dashboard. OK? And you also can define your own CSS if you want. You obviously have to define exactly the same ID. There is a start dashboard side as well. there is a on real-time message received from client side this time to communicate to with the client. And that's it. Nothing else. You decide to do whatever you want with that. So let's think about the console, for instance, how the console is working. The console on the client side, so the part of the plugin running on your remote device, they have to, let me move to the interesting part, sorry for the scroll. That's a lot. Here. When Vorlon calls start client side on the client side for this specific plugin, what we have to do is to hook all the console.something. We have to replace console.log by our own implementation, right? And for that, there is an interesting tool that you can use here, which is tools. It's something provided by Vorlon itself. And you can say, OK, let's hook windows.console, function clear, and I just want to call this when console.clear is called. Tools.hook here will take care of everything for you. It will hook the initial function, keep it, add your code, and then call the original one. Okay? So it's clearly a hook. You just want to be notified that the function was called. So then we can use this to, for instance, let's say, for log. Okay, when log is called, I want to create a message. This message will just be, let's get all the message. That type of call was log. Let's add that to a list of things I want to send when the refresh is hit. Gotcha? And that's it. I can show you as well the device one, which is the one that just captures information about the size of your devices. The size of your devices, each time you call refresh, each time you select a specific client, we just want to get, OK, get me the user agent, what's the meta viewport, blah, 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 blah. This is the message I want to send. OK, boom, send that to the dashboard. That's it. I'm capturing information on the client, packaging everything inside the message, and I'm sending this message to the server. In the other side, the server itself, when a message is received from the client, OK, let's say I receive a full message. I'm going to call update. And an update is here. I'm just defining specific information inside my UI. My UI is a list of features, size, width, DPI, blah, blah, blah. I receive information from the client, like DPI is equal to blah. Let's move that and change the value on screen. That's it. I wrote my plugin. And that's pretty powerful because you can run that on any device that accepts JavaScript and display it on your dashboard. Yes? OK. If you have any question on Vorlon.js, these are the 4 guys that wrote it. I would like to say something about the community because it's not my first community project. I also wrote Babylon.js, if you know it. It's a 3D engine. But for Vorlon.js, we have a really tremendous feedback from the community. Today, every version, 50% of the code is really written by us, and 50% really come from the community. So people are really pushing code inside Vorlon. And I think it's a good way for me to measure the success of this tool. If you need it, all the infrastructure is here. Please just add your own plugin, or please just come and add specific features that you would like to have. It's here for that. Thank you. Do you have any question? If you yep.
You said that it runs in JavaScript.
Sandbox, yep. Yeah.
So whenever you're on a device, what kind of access do you have to like the actual device API? So if you want to know something specific to an iOS device or an Android device, is it possible to get access to that layer?
No, it's like having a web page actually. So we have the same power of the web page. So if you can do that with a regular JavaScript code, like accessing something in windows.chrome.app, which is a specific place where I know that Google moves some of their features, that's fine. You can try, you can actually test if the feature is here and then use it. But there is no native API available for this specific tool. And the reason is that we don't want to have something, we want to be agnostic. So we don't want to have something really specific for a specific browser or whatever, like calling, I don't know, NP API on Chrome, whatever. We just want to use plain JavaScript. So no security issue, whatever, in this case. Yep.
Okay, I'm a little bit lost on a couple things. What if I were to put an app in the App Store?
Okay. Yep.
And a customer calls me up and says it doesn't work properly.
Yep.
Can you handle that?
Yep.
With the proxy thing, right?
No, without the proxy. Because the proxy, if it's an app, so the question is I have an app, I publish it in my iOS store, for instance, and I have a customer that calls me and he wants to fix a bug, right?
He wants me to look at it.
Yep, and he wants you to look at it. Because it's an app, you cannot ask the app to go to a specific URL. You see what I mean? If it's a website, the user can just open the web browser and enter the proxy URL / your website URL, and then it works. For an app, it's a little bit different, but it works as well. In this case, you have to inject Vorlon.js on demand. You see? So for this specific one, two options. You can have a specific version of the app running like in the store as well, and you can ask them, okay, can you please open this app, which is the same but with the debug on, or you can just have an option in your settings inside the app to say enable debug mode, for instance, or enable development mode. When this button is on, then you load Vorlon.js, and then you're ready to debug.
Okay, so the next question, I hope I'm not boring for many people. You go to Apple, and you say, please approve my app.
Yep.
Somebody to suddenly connect to somebody else's computer.
Yep.
For Apple, I would host that unless you had some really good way of assuring that the user of the app understands there's somebody else. So have you been in that situation where you...
Not with Apple, but with Android, for instance, and there are less...
Android, I know would be no problem with that.
Yeah. But they still ask to have a disclaimer, like beware when you open this feature, a communication channel will be established between you and your provider, blah, blah, blah.
As long as you have a dialogue.
Yes. And I think it's fair, even for Apple, I think, to at least say, okay, I will establish a connection. It's just for debug purpose. No security issue or whatever. I just want to control what's happening. If it's a web view, because you are using a web view inside your app, you are already accessing a lot of stuff outside the app.
But it's just like giving your GPS coordinates. The app says...
Yes, you're right.
Some customer supports person, you give agreement.
Yeah, you have to have a disclaimer. But technically, no issue.
Okay.
Yes?
You said it's not good in the production environment, so then it's better on the back end before you did production?
Yes, I think it's the initial goal was clearly to work in the staging environment. So you have your own testing suites, and at some point in time you want to do specific testing on specific devices. But you can as well use it in a production environment, as long as you don't turn it on every time. It should be turned on demand. Yeah, if it's not on demand, you will have a lot of socket I/O connection to your server. You will pay for that, and that's not a good idea.
And then also, how does it compare with Phantom.js?
Okay, how does it compare to Phantom.js? Phantom.js is a headless version of Chrome that you can use to actually debug, but it's not, Phantom.js is not running on a specific device. You see, it's running inside your environment on a specific computer. So you don't have all the information related to if I'm running your website on a specific Android device with a specific resolution, you won't be able to fix that with Phantom.js because you need to run dynamically on the specific device where you may have the issue. And the only way to do that is to remote debug this specific device that should be out there, and you would have no way to figure out where is it. So
you guys, you can almost use one in one arena, Phantom in another arena, and use both.
yes. Yeah, that's two different sides of the same coin, to be honest. It's still debugging but for different, it's more live. Vorlon.js is more live. I'm living and executing my code on a specific device, and I want to understand why on my PlayStation 4, on this specific screen TV, I don't see my button. Why? So the only way is to hover on the DOM, understand that your CSS rule is wrong because the device has a specific resolution with a specific device DPI and a bad meta viewport somewhere. There is no way to figure out this without actually debugging it live. Yep.
Can you see the screen of the device?
No, and that's my main problem. I cannot capture. I would have loved to be able to do that. I cannot capture a screenshot of the client because there is no API available on the JavaScript space, let's say, that can allow me to do that. And I understand perfectly why. It's just security reason. So browser vendors do not allow you to capture a screenshot. So there is no way to see the screen.
You can't walk from the root of the DOM to all the sizes?
I can do that, but it will just be an emulation.
Okay, but it's not a screenshot.
It's not a screenshot.
Okay.
So the bug that you may have, which is dependent on how the platform currently implement the specific CSS rule, for instance, you won't have that. The only way for me would be to have a screenshot. And there is no way to do that. And it's by design, because we don't want, as browser vendors, to open this Pandora box. Thank you, everyone.